further ado, I'm turning our session right over to Mr. Wallace.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm going to see if I can share my screen here. All right, I think I am. Let's see, can you guys see my screen? Let's see here.
I cannot.
All right, hang on a second. All right, here we go. All right, now you should be able to. All right, everyone. Well, welcome back. It's so exciting to be with you again for a kind of a continuation of our topic this morning. I do want to just kind of go over a few other things, share a few other thoughts with you, and then sort of maybe take you on some examples of the work that, like ground floor, what we're doing here in Georgia. I think that will help you kind of see how all of these thoughts kind of play out in the way that we do things. And hopefully we'll, hopefully this conversation will be a little bit more informal, less maybe structured than what we were this morning. I really wanted to make sure I secure some time for us to follow up and talk together as well and have more Q&A time as well. So again, I'm super excited to be with you guys, super honored to connect with you and very appreciative of the work you do. I'm always careful to start everything by saying thank you to teachers. So let's make sure we do that. Say very heartfelt thank you for the work you do. And I know you're engaged. I am, in a manner of speaking, I guess, on my honeymoon. So the work never stops, I guess I would say. But, we're all in this together. So I'm super excited again to be with you today. You recall this, I was sharing with you that talking about synergy and about all of these opportunities and this thinking and trying to get you to think about those topics from your perspective, because each of us have a perspective. We're all in this and in different rooms and classrooms and different levels. But I would stress again that, we are a team, and whether we're just in the state of Georgia or in Maryland, but we are all part of that national movement, if you will, to try to push global education, to try to push language education in the United States. So today, I'm just going to kind of continue our conversation a little bit and talk about what do we need to create the scene for success, and what do we need to facilitate dialogue and synergy between systems and between individuals. So I think first and foremost, transparency creates synergy. I think that I fundamentally believe that, because the more transparent you can be in your work, and what I will say at the outset here is that every DOE, Department of Education, is different. Some work under different situations. So it's kind of hard to sometimes say exactly that this can be done and everything. I know that just from my own work, that some of the freedoms that I enjoy as a program specialist in Georgia over world languages, it depends very much on how that works in other systems. Out of all of our state school superintendents, I think only 15 are elected and the rest are appointed by the governors. So, so there is, even in our work, I guess my point is there's a lot of variation. But transparency, I believe, helps to create. So that's one thing, is how do we become more transparent in our work? How do we become more transparent in our work to the stakeholders who we are serving? In my case, it's all of the systems and all of the public, basically. But in your work, it might be to your parents and to your students. Particularly, I've always found as a teacher, how do I create links and transparency and communication for my parents? It was always a little bit more work, to be honest. But if you're kind of developing a habit of doing it, like newsletters or regular emails that go out once a week to kind of share, okay, this is what we're doing. I think anything that you can do like that, that will help to sort of draw your stakeholders into what you're doing and to share with them that process so that it's not a secret. I think that's a good thing. The other thing is how we connect our work. How do we connect our work with the larger picture that's outside of our classrooms, but also how do we connect our work interdisciplinary within our school So how is the work that we're doing in the world language classroom connected to science, connected to history, connected to English, connected to these arts and music? So I think the work that we can do within our classrooms to connect our work to the broader context. One thing I always said is that the beauty of teaching language was I really was a teacher of every subject. I just did it in a different language. I was just you're really not so much a subject area as you are an overlay over all the areas, because language is in everything. So no matter what subject is being taught out there, you're really introducing students to a whole nother bubble, if you will, that contains all of these things, but in a different language. And for some students, that's a tremendous mental leap for them to understand that, because imagine they might have grown up only with English speakers around them or only in their communities. But I think that's where we are so critical in terms of the curriculum of our schools, because we are the direct connection with the global society. That's why I talk about my work sometimes in relation to global education, because we are the ones that provide perspective on everything. So we are critical to providing perspective for students on their world. The world is not only in English. The world does not only take place. The science is not only a creation and an area where people operate within the United States. Science is something that the globe works with humanity. So we are that connection to humanity. And I think that's very important for us to recognize in our work. We are not small. World languages is by definition, and in fact, very large and connects across all disciplines in the curriculum. We're unique in that respect as a subject area. Our work provides a global perspective on everything. So connecting your work to the other disciplines, connecting your work to the context of humanity on a global scale. That's very important, because our kids are working and living increasingly, even in our domestic situation, in an increasingly multicultural, multinational, multilingual society. So it's very critical, that work that we're doing. I also talked about this a little bit before, but just to mention it maybe in different terms, but the importance of working vertically and laterally, the importance of working within your context of your job vertically. Who are my stakeholders? I work within that, but also the importance of taking a little bit of time to connect laterally with other disciplines, with other schools, with others working in other districts. That's how advocacy mostly takes place, which is on that lateral scale. But I will say, now that I think about it, it's also very vertical. So the job that we do within our context is your advocacy. Even if you can't be connected to everything, and there's so much time in the day, to think of your work as your advocacy in many ways, and doing your work well, doing it with thought and with care. That is your message. That is you giving a message to your stakeholders about the work that you're doing. I would say spread success, honor, and encourage. Success is success comes through effort. It really does. But also success comes through collaboration. Being sure to honor students when you can. Look for ways to honor them. In my work at the Department of Education, one of the programs we started was a World Language Educator of the Month program. So we started every month honoring one of our teachers within the state of Georgia who is doing great work. And while, yes, that was the context behind that, was to raise our teachers up and to highlight them, but also in many ways, it was also to increase focus on the work that they're doing, not only on themselves personally, but on the importance of the work that we're doing. So that was a very successful program. And so through all of this, I just say, continue to spread success. Be sure to honor those when you can. When you honor others, you are lifting up the profession. You are lifting up the subject area. And of course, teachers are a constant sort of source of encouragement. Today's world is really, there's a lot of hardship out there. And I know that perhaps you have encountered this within your own student body. Many people are without work. There's lots of, increased pressure and stress, so many things that are going on. Our schools have always been our sort of rudder for the ship of the nation, if you will. They are the ones who help to provide guidance and sustainability to every day, to give people that source of hope, that source of some consistency in a world that has been very inconsistent of late. So your work as educators and the work that we do is critical to the success of our communities, because you are the keel of the ship that keeps everything steady amidst all the storms that blow above the water. Your keel that stays strong under the water is helping to continue to drive forward progress. If we lose our keel, if we lose that, then it becomes much more serious and much more dangerous for everyone. So the work that you're doing is critically important in that regard. I always want to promote innovation if we can. Remember, I talked about stretching, but with stretch, you anchor in a need, you stretch, and the outgrowth of that is growth. The outgrowth of that is innovation. We need to always be innovating. We need to be looking to innovate. It's always, when I was teaching, I always talked about, when I taught, I wanted to do I+1, to always add new information to them, something new. And so when we're in our workspaces, whether it be in a classroom or at the state level, our goal is to continue to innovate, to look for opportunities that where there is need, and then innovate to meet those needs. So this is all about creating the scene for success. And really, these are things that teachers do every day. You do these things every day: effective, successful, compassionate, hardworking teachers do these things, but maybe we don't think about it all the time. And of course, I know the teacher life, and I know how distracted you can be. And sometimes, you're leading your own life, you have your own families, and then there's always more you can pour into work. And that's where that balance comes in. Remember that first slide I showed this morning with all those things, make sure you take care of yourself. But as we move forward in our work, we can pour more thought into these things. This is really about nurturing the soul of a teacher, so that, yes, there's a lot that we can do, but these drops of rain, they nourish this ground. And so as you are teachers, we want to drop this rain on you to nourish you, so that you can then in turn nourish others. So it's very important that we have that system where we're constantly supporting and trying to encourage each other. So we need to provide quality professional development. In Georgia, one of the things we've been trying to work on is to provide proficiency guidance, provide guidance on how to achieve greater levels of proficiency. A lot of times, the greatest resources that we have are our teachers. It's just giving them stages upon which to share what they have, to raise them up. I don't think we lose ever when we raise up good teachers, because they provide guidance for the core of teachers that we have, and they're role models. And you all have had those in your careers, perhaps teachers you've looked up to in the past that have inspired you to enter teaching, and then those that solved a problem for you that you had. But in our work, what we're trying to do is push proficiency on the standpoint of, when we talk just about language, we want to drive students toward higher levels of proficiency. And one reason we want to do that is because we want them to earn the seal of biliteracy. And in Georgia, so there's a minimum. So that's our goal. And things we can do to help teachers begin to think about their work and the necessful, actful, can-do statements, and using those. We've done a lot of work with that. We're working with ACTFL right now on the creation of new things. but try to provide guidance toward how do we teach and how do we move students toward greater proficiency. You know, one of the biggest things we've done and the greatest success we've had has come with just being open and coordinating with partners, being an active participant in the landscape of our communities on the local level, but also within the state on the state level. So that means aligning our work with the greater goals of other institutions that are also involved in this, identifying who are our potential partners, working with them to build coalitions. This is how greater change happens. It happens because of the synergy that we can create among partners that are spread laterally, but also connected. So I think coordinating with partners is important, and finding those partners within your school or within your community are going to be important. Also, you know, one thing you're doing today is really important. That is connecting with your professional organizations, connecting with the Maryland Foreign Language Teachers Association, connecting with ACTFL, connecting with other associations, connecting with teachers online, connecting with our centers for language support that are out there. So there are a lot of professional organizations and even institutions within your state that work in the area of foreign language or world language. So connecting with that is very important. We support each other through those connections. Supporting your professional associations is super important. It's a part of growing that community. You are in effect helping yourself each time that you do that. So the fact that you're here today and listening to me and listening to these great presentations and great things that others have prepared for you today, all of that is very important. Also, let's continue our outreach. Let's not forget that, you know, we represent, you know, I always say that the USA is made up of everybody, right? The USA is complete. So we need to make sure that we do our outreach to diverse communities and not just target one thing. I always say world language is world. We are world. We are, everyone is together. So just being aware that we need to expand outreach. For example, in Georgia with our Seal of Biliteracy, we now have outreach about the Seal of Biliteracy in 8 different languages. We don't take it for granted that they all speak English. So trying to increase our outreach through our partners, through our professional organizations, through others, through institutions, through other government agencies, you know, we're able to expand our outreach and try to work to those diverse communities. I can tell personal stories. For example, there's a Bulgarian school in Atlanta. So I actually went to the school pre-COVID, and I spoke to them about the Seal of Biliteracy, that it was available to them. And sure enough, we have students now who earn that Seal of Biliteracy. So outreaching to these communities is really important, and something that we need to continue to do. And if we do all these things, we're going to increase our opportunities. We're going to find with greater synergy, with greater connectivity, we increase opportunity. So a lot of things that some people often say, well, Patrick, you know, I don't understand how you're able. First of all, people say your team is doing a great job. And I say, yes, this team of I am the only one working on this at the state level, but I think because we have such a great group of people we're connecting with, we're able to do multiple things in a month, and it's not all the weight's not on me. So we're able to sort of spread the weight by spreading our partnerships, by building that. So I know I talk about things like this from a state level, and I'm asking you to think about what I'm saying in the context of your situation. How do you build that, and who are the opportunities? Where do they exist for you to begin to think about some of these? Am I connected to my professional organizations? What can they offer me? Am I doing outreach to the school community about the SEAL, about this great opportunity and the importance of it. You know, am I connecting and coordinating with community partners? What can I do to increase opportunities for my students or for myself? You know, these are things I think, even though I work with these things at my level, they are things that also relate to you. So, you know, this raindrop, as it will, falls through everything on its way to earth. So it falls through all the levels. So these precepts, these things to think about, they impact all levels. So I guess that's where I'm going and why I felt led to share that with you today. We are in this together. That's something that, you know, that goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway. We're in this together. So my success at the state level depends on the success of my district coordinators, which in turn depends upon the success of my teachers. So we are all in this together. I think that interconnectivity is very important to foster, and this symbiotic relationship that we have with one another, that I fight for you, we fight for each other, and we come further together. You know, we have challenges. COVID is certainly a challenge. So how do we have to be adaptive. We have to address those challenges. So we also always have to proceed with an understanding of what are the needs and what are the goals. Your goals often come from your needs. So when you look at your students and you see their needs, you know, how do we craft what we're doing in the classroom to fit those needs so that they can achieve their goals, right? So we have to understand those needs. You cannot teach in a vacuum. You know, one thing about teaching that I understand is that it is personal, right? So, you know, you develop relationships. We lead through relationships. Relationships are so important in the classroom, just as they are at the state level, you know, and things that get done, a lot of opportunity is an outgrowth of relationships and the relationships that you build. That means that we have to be that means that we have to value those relationships. So that means that we have to put effort into building them. And then we also have to make sure that we're taking care of them. Because if a relationship is broken, it's harder to bring it back to where it was. So definitely doing that is important. You know, we have to articulate a route to success for our students. So we are the captain of the ship, if you will, and we're articulating to them our vision for where they want to go. They are in your language class. Many of them may just be there because it's a requirement and they're required to take the course. So what we have to cast and be able to give them is also a vision for why what we are teaching is important, a vision for where they can go with this knowledge and what could potentially do. For many kids, you're the first look at a global world for them. For me, things really opened up when I learned German because I began to understand, to look at things from a different perspective. It opened my world, as it were, beyond just the English world that I had known. And now, in today's world, with the internet right there, the world is available. So maybe there's always nowadays a more higher level of basic understanding to some degree. You know, maybe they play games online with people from other parts of the world, and there's languages that they see, but it's still a big mystery for them. So I think what we have to work toward is articulating a route toward success for students. And that's true as well for systems on a larger scale. We need to constantly be looking to modernize our approaches and practices, right? So that's what you're doing now. You're adapting your practices to meet the needs of today. The needs of tomorrow most certainly will change. Being adaptable over 30 years, you know, that's a career in world language. So being able to be flexible enough to adapt, to be strong enough to look at your practices and say, you know what, I might need to improve myself here. I understand that there's something that I need to do. you never stop growing. We never stop growing. And the day we stop growing is the day that we really, that's really a day that we really need to think about things. Am I supposed to be here? Because if I'm not growing, that's not a good thing. So the path forward, the inertia, we always need that in education. So, and your needs are changing. The needs of your students are changing. If you're a principal, the needs of your teachers are changing. There are new stresses on the students. There are new stresses on the teachers. Give yourself grace and give grace to others, because it is a challenging time right now. And we have to realize that we can't live in a fishbowl. We can't ignore the world around us, but we have to continue to provide that steady keel for students, that reassuring, that important hug, if you will, to say everything's okay, not in a physical sense, but I mean that stability that has been lacking in our lives for so long now. We also need to understand and explain impacts vertically and laterally. What I mean by that is we need to understand how our work translates up the line. So if you're in 8th grade and you're teaching Spanish, how will my work affect the work of the high school students that will get that student later? So if you think about education as a continuum, which it is, and we're all in different slices of that continuum. I might have them for 9th grade. I was a German teacher, so it was really interesting. I got to see some of that continuum because I had the same students every year. In some cases, I had students from 8th grade all the way till they were 12th grade. So I got to see them grow through this space. But many of you as teachers may only have your students for 1 year before they're moved on to another teacher at another level. That's why curriculum is very important to help tie us together. Curriculum maps at a district level, curriculum plans. That's why at the state level, thinking about things in a broader context. At the state level, you really have to think about things in a very broad context. So to allow for maximum flexibility and adaptability in the lower levels. But when you think about your work, don't think about your work in isolation. Your work is a layer of a cake. And so your work will depend on the layers under you. And the success that will come will also depend on the success that you have in your classroom today. So just be aware that vertically, your work is important. And also laterally, your work is important, how it relates to the other subjects that are being taught. In the world of world language, you are unique in many ways because your work is global. Your work is connected to people. It's not connected to math or something hard like that. It's connected to people, and people move through all kinds of things. So we are really at the fundamental core of what humanity is. And we really give kids the global view of humanity, that humanity is not defined by just having one language or having one perspective on life, but humanity, that we share this globe together. This is a byproduct of our work. It's probably, in many cases, our most important job, is to connect our students with humanity, connect our students with the world, so that they understand that they do not live in a vacuum. And anything that they do, even on a small level of how we treat waste or what we do with that has a global impact. And, we see that more and more. Everything is global. This pandemic is global. Weather is global. So the things that we have to, so that's the connection that our students are more and more becoming more and more important as this world becomes more compacted and interconnected, is this ability. So it's super important part of our work. And we need to ensure, so ultimately our goal is to try to ensure success for as many possible for as long as possible. You have a classroom of 30 kids. I know that you can't reach all of them, but we can try. And there's nothing more important than for us to try to ensure as much success. And that goes for ourselves as well. We need to work together. We need to support each other to be successful, because your success is also my success. The success we have in Georgia, or the success we find in Maryland, those things help each other. And so that's really important. And I think that's where I'm going to leave that for now. But at the end of the day, I'd say it's our responsibility. If we don't do this, we are leading the charge. We are the prow of the ship. We are breaking the waves. It is our responsibility to do the best we can with the time we are given and the place we are called to serve in. You serve in a school. Do your best to be the best person that you can be for your students, for your parents, for your community. And in a larger respect, if we all do that, then it will all be better. It will be a better whole at the end of the day. It is our responsibility. We have a responsibility and a duty. Educators have always led. Educators are the people that plant the seeds that grow great leaders. So your work in the classroom will be important for the leadership of our society. Your interactions with students is super important. So that's important for me to say. Finally, we need to share to the broader world. We need to do better at messaging. We need to do better at outreach to our stakeholders. We need to share the harvest. We are reaping great things in our classrooms. How are we sharing that? How are we getting, think about expanding your platforms and promoting the successes of your students and your fellow teachers. How do we do that? All of that is going to be beneficial work. It's all worthwhile. So continue to look for ways to do that. Share the vision. When you're in a classroom, and I know this personally very well, you're the one that shares the vision. And where there is no vision, often it is said the people perish. So we need to provide vision. We need to provide vision for the students in our classroom. As an organization, we provide vision for educators. So it's important for you in a personal way to have a vision for your life and where you want to go, but it's also important in a professional way for you to have a vision of where you want to go and to cast that vision and to have that goal, that horizon that you're striving for. Tell them what you're doing and why. And that's really important. Turn the dial toward realistic positively. I'm not saying we have to be, I'm a positively bent person, I like to think, and I know that a lot of educators are. We need to keep positive. We can be realistic. We don't have to be, and it has to be grounded. Positivity has to be grounded or it's not believable. When people tell you everything's going to be all right and nothing is changing, it's hard to believe that message. But if they see you doing things and they see the efforts you're making, they believe that, are more likely to believe what you're saying. So, our messaging needs to be backed up by our actions. But we always need to be focused in on being positive for our students, not out of the pie in the sky positive without any basis, but just building. When you build a structure, you begin with the foundation, right? So you're laying the foundation in your relationships with your students in your classroom. You are pouring concrete into their lives that they can build upon for the future, what they want their lives to be. You are, I always say, well, you're a cement mixer. You're laying that foundation. You're giving them that firm foundation, and they can build what they want on top of it. But it's important for us to be realistic, but be positive, because really that's the struggle of humanity, to be positive and to overcome our difficulties together, support each other. Yeah, goes without saying. It seems like a no-brainer, but we need to support each other's efforts. We need to cheer for each other. One of our teachers loves the message of, when birds are flying and seagulls flying and how one honks to support the one in the lead. That's what we need to do. We can't always, we are called to do what we can do and support each other, even as others step out and take a challenge or take on something. We need to be supportive and continue to encourage them. And when they drop back in the formation and another takes over that lead, we need to continue to be supportive of those leaders in our world language communities, in our classrooms. So support each other and cheer for each other. That's very important for us to do. If we rely on others to do it, that's not good. We need to take the initiative and do it ourselves. So thinking about how do we cheer for our teachers? How do I put programs in place that raise my teachers up, that cheer for them, that honk for them, so that they know that they're not flying alone and that they are not flying without the support of the flock behind them? Be the change you want to see. This is a personal situation, right? Teaching is a personal act. You are sharing part of yourself with the people that are in your care. These human beings that are in your care, they are just as valuable as any other human being on the planet. They're just younger versions. So we want to see change in that next generation. We have to be prepared to be the change. So we have to be prepared to model that. This is a role that every parent understands, right? We have to be a model for what we want our kids to be. So we can't send them double messages. So integrity is important. Being responsible is important, but also being human is important. And that means when you fail, you show that side of you as well, because failure is just as important as victory when it comes to growing, right? As Einstein said, he created 999 different ways not to make a light bulb before he created the one that did. So it's about improving. It's about trial and error. It's about being able to overcome your failures, learn from them, and grow forward into the future, having that knowledge and being a better person and a better educator as a result of those experiences. Don't keep your successes a secret. A lot of times I'm as a state, one of the work I do is also cheer, right? I cheer for teachers. So I want them always to share with me the good things they're doing, because as they share it to me, then I can take that and amplify it. One voice, yes. And, we are shy to some degree. I would say, we don't like to brag about ourselves, but we also have to realize that we have to cheer for each other. We have to be ready to also brag about the work that others are doing. And that's what organizations like the Foreign Language Teacher Association here is for. We support each other. We share those successes. And now I know I've talked a little bit, but I did want to take out this last part, which is about taking care of our workers. I know that no matter what I do and the programs I build, really it's all dependent upon our workforce. So being able to take care of our teachers is critical to the success of our programs. It's critical to the growth of those programs. So it's important for us to think about, how do we sustain growth? We need to continue to look for ways to mentor new teachers. And I suspect, and I don't know, but I think that, we've had a lot of teachers, choose that this, the risk is not worth, and they've left the professions. Many of the older teachers that we have had, or those that were in poor health or had situations, have opted to leave. And I totally understand that point. We have to always take care of our teacher core. So how do we mentor new teachers, and how do we build support structures for teachers? That's what really my work is in a lot of ways as well, when I think about it. And it's not just for teachers in Georgia, but how do we support world language teachers? How do we, as a teacher in your school, How do you support one another? Are you on each other's side? Are you working together? Sometimes it's difficult to understand. And sometimes relationships are hard to build, but we're here to support each other, particularly our new teachers. You know, those stats where we lose a lot of our teachers within the first 5 years of profession. So that's why organizations like this one and others are super important for that. So building support structures, whether at a district level, school level, or state level, that will support our teachers is critical. You know, if you don't have teachers, you're not going to have world language programs. So you got to understand that that's very critical to the success of having students. Happy teachers, happy students. How do we do that? We've got to take care of our teachers as much as we take care of our students. We need to, in Georgia, you know, we've been looking at how do we expand certification routes and systems? How do we provide opportunities for teachers for training? You know, the multi-state Pathways to Teaching Institute that we're engaged in with the American Council for Teaching Foreign Languages. It's a Start Talk program, but our goal in that is to find teachers, that people who with the talent who want to be teachers, and encourage them along that pathway. We have to expand outreach about certification as well. You can't just provide it in one language. What are we doing for native speakers of Spanish to provide options for them to understand often a very complicated route towards certification? What can we use as a state agency or a district agency? What can we do to create opportunities for more teachers who have the ability to enter the profession and be successful? How do we support them on their journey? It's critical for our society, I would argue. Partnering with professional organizations is super important. You know, the AATSP, the AATG, AATF, these chapters that are within states are important. So we have great relationships with, we work hand in hand with them. Partnering with other professional organizations that provide support. You know, we're blessed in Georgia to have, you know, the Center for Urban Language Teaching and Research. It's a national foreign language center. So being able to partner with them is important. Growing new partners, you know, a lot of times if partners don't exist, then the question becomes, how do I grow new partners? What organizations are out there that could potentially help me, and how do I get them engaged? Honoring the profession and the people. We have to do a better job of honoring teachers and the profession of teaching. If we want teachers, we have to make sure that we do this. So we have to lift them up. We want students to think about their lives and say, wow, I want to be a teacher just like my teacher was. And, you know, the greatest source for new teachers is often the students who pass through our classrooms, who are inspired by you as individuals and want to become teachers because you were inspiring to them, and they saw that and they said, you know, that's something I could see myself doing. It's sort of a deep internal thing that individuals have, a moment of clarity where they understand that's what I want to be. Teaching is about loving, and so, you know, teaching and loving are very much the same act. And then the other thing is reaching out to pipeline partners in the public. So how do we build a teacher pipeline for the future, and the public, doing what we can to honor teachers publicly, and specifically is very important. That's why we had the World Language Educator of the Month program at Georgia again. And we had actually celebrations at the end of the year where the superintendent honored those individuals. So it's not only about honoring them as individuals, but honoring the profession as well. So that's super important for us to do. We all have a role to play in this great work, right? So the role that I feel as a state supervisor is one role. The role that you fill as a Spanish teacher at the high school level is another. But we all have to do it together. None of us, these jobs are bigger than any one of us. And nobody has ownership of the answer. The answer is multifaceted, and it has to come from all of us. So this is more about a blanket, not just a string. So being the blanket for that. Hopefully you understand where I'm going with that. So I'm looking at the time and I'm seeing that we're quarter till or so. And I just wanted to kind of share with you some of our story here. So I'm going to open my Georgia photo album here. We talk about working together toward common goals. This is one of the first sort of visuals I created. I love visuals because they help to encapsulate large thoughts into something that's strong. But when I look at our work, we're interconnected. So I don't just look at our world language programs. I look at our virtual programs. I look at our dual language immersion programs. I look at our world language professional organizations, our colleges, and really our cultural partners, our embassies, our consulates, our international business partners. So all of this works together to create that synergy I've been talking about. We have developed outreach. We have a world language calendar where we keep a date of what's happening. We have world language updates that we put out monthly that go out. We have tried to develop what I call guidance at a glance documents to take complex information and put it into something easy. We need to look at our communications in terms of building guidance for the consumer. So if I'm talking to parents, I need to write and develop guidance for parents. If I'm talking to a student, I need to message that differently. So looking at messaging and how we do that. I don't certify teachers in the state of Georgia. The Professional Standards Commission in Georgia does, but I have built that relationship, and working with them, we've created guidance at a glance documents to make it super easy for us to see our pathway to becoming a teacher. We've done it in Spanish. We know not everybody can, even even language is a barrier. So this is some of the work that we've been doing, and I'm just kind of sharing that. We have a professional development page where we're starting to house all our videos, we're building online conferences. And when I build a conference, I build it free. I build it available for anyone in the United States and beyond to really join. We have a German language conference coming up. We're building websites for these conferences. So this is not just me. Remember, I'm just one, but what I have been able to do with Synergy is to build this opportunity across things. I've slogan and branding, thinking about my work. How do we project this? What are we doing? You got to be a little bit of an advertiser in today's world. Providing guidance at a glance, like how do you get our seal of biliteracy? That can be very complicated. So we put it visually in a chart, thinking about how do we make this easier to understand for everyone. I think I'll probably stop here and start to maybe think about taking some questions and things, because I'm sure you have some thoughts. But this is one of the first things I've created, talking about crafting keys for global competency. So I think about my work in terms of internal and external within the Department of Ed. I think about immersion. I think about this concept of synergy. I think about workforce and how we're relating to that, and then proficiency. So thinking about all of this stuff and categorizing it in my own head, and then trying to push those arrows forward on a weekly basis. So university and college advisory boards, all of these things are things that are constantly adapting and changing. So this might look differently in a year or two. It's just a snapshot. And so it is in your classroom. When you're thinking about, you could use this same chart and say, well, what am I doing put your keys up there, and what are you doing to build community? What are you doing to build proficiency? What are you doing to build partnerships? What are you doing to support each other? So think about that, and think about what are you specifically doing to be able to do those things. It's an ongoing situation. Lots of great things are happening, and I hope with this morning and with today, I've sort of touched on some of the things that I think are important. It's just my personal sort of experience over the last 3 years in this role, being a former German teacher of 22 years, as I said, and knowing that classroom experience and what it was like. I'm just trying to share some thoughts on where we are. So I think at this point, I'm now going to stop and open it up for some questions and things like that you might have.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Patrick. That was amazing information. We do have a couple of questions. I'll start with number one. Does the Georgia Department of Education work with institutions of higher ed to help shed light on the seal of biliteracy and the types of students in your language programs are producing, the means by which they are teaching students? This teacher said she often hears from her students that the way that we teach our language programs and college, they're kind of completely different.
Absolutely. I'm going to share my screen again and kind of share with you some things. So absolutely, it's very important to work together with so what we've done in Georgia is we've created a university and college advisory board to the Georgia Department of Ed. And so we have met and I connect with them regularly, but I'll just show you an outgrowth of that. So this is our homepage here. And I'm going to go to our professional development page. And I just want to show you an outgrowth of the work that takes place and what can come from it with these things. So just bear with me for a moment. And I know there's a lot of information on here and I can drop that in here. We have a lot of resources here. These are available for you as well. But what I really wanted to point to, if I can get there, is, so this right here. So this is a chart we created in partnership with.
Excuse me, Patrick. I think you're still showing your PowerPoint and not your actual screen.
Hang on a second. Let's see. Let me try to do this again. I just want to, okay. And let's try this. Okay, you guys see that? Okay. This is, I think
we're seeing a black, now we can see it. Yep, you're good.
Right, okay. So what we did in partnership with our universities throughout the state of Georgia is we created a sort of guidance piece for every student leaving the school in Georgia. They can look at this at a guidance at a glance. You know, it's all visual, it's all in one place, but where can I study Spanish? They can see that they can study at all of these universities, and these are hyperlinked. You know, where can I study French? Where can I study German? If I want to study Vietnamese, where would I go to do that? You know, so they have a Vietnamese program at University of Georgia. So part of it is directing students along this path. So the conversations that we have with our university and foreign language team, if you will, that spans K-21, that is an in-depth I have contact lists where I'm just reaching out to them. There's a sort of direct lines of communication, which is our world language updates that goes out to everyone in the state, even our university partners. So they get this every time as well. We have them hyperlinked on our web pages as well. So we're trying to build these interrelated, interconnected activity with our higher ed, because we know just as kindergarten is not a vacuum, neither is fourth grade, neither is eighth grade, neither is 12th grade, and neither is pursuing a bachelor or master's. You know, we're all connected. So building that synergy vertically has been super important to the creation of a document like this. And this is super helpful for students. I know that a funny story is that I shared this at a thing, and the CIA said, "Can we have a copy?" Yes, it's public. You can find it. And so, you know, just being able, that shows you the synergy that exists in the creation of just something as simple as this. It seems pretty easy, yes, but it really is a lot of work that goes behind creating that piece of communication. That is the work of our synergistic partners vertically. to create documents like this. And I apologize for but this is our professional development page here. So this is where a lot of this information is housed. You know, we have our links to our professional associations here. You know, we have links to language here. You know, we have our world language cultural things. We have partners. So we have all these partners, all of these universities linked directly to their page. So students are really, it's easy to find. And that's really what we want to do. So again, I'll stop sharing, but that's sort of an answer to that question.
And a lot of people in the chat were very impressed with that resource. So thank you for sharing. The next question is about the seal of biliteracy. What are the different pathways for students in the state of Georgia to earn the seal of biliteracy?
Okay, so for students to earn the Georgia Seal of Biliteracy, it is a national movement, but there is no national legislation around the Seal of Biliteracy. So it's up to the states when they pass a law to create those requirements. In Georgia, we say you have to have a 3.0 GPA in the English language arts. And the reason we did that instead of an English test is we didn't want to pile on another test. So we just base it, their English proficiency off their GPA. And then when it comes to the Seal of Biliteracy, and let me probably just try to share again here, and we'll go to that. Let's see. So let me see. All right, let's go to our Seal of Biliteracy page. So we're going to go back to our home page here. Just bear with me for a moment and I'll show you exactly what we're doing there. Right, so moving a little slow. All right, here we go. So we're going to go to our Georgia Seal of Biliteracy page. And so what we did was we published the law, of course, here for anyone to read. And we have guidance. So we've been publishing guidance. One thing that we've done with the Seal of Biliteracy because of the pandemic is we extended all the deadlines. We were very flexible. I have just completed the 2020 cycle for the Seal of Biliteracy just this past week. So we're very cognizant of the stresses because the pandemic hit in February. So that was right at spring where a lot of the SEAL stuff was getting really labeled. So students were having to test. All of that was interrupted. So we took the perspective of being very flexible for that. We extended all the deadlines so we provided guidance. Our goal is to try to get as many kids as we can who qualify, give them access to earning that seal. So we have a very simple submission portal here. So if I'm district coordinators, I communicate with our district coordinators in the larger metro areas, and we handle that. I work directly with them. But if you're in a rural community and you're a teacher at a rural school, you can make your request for seals directly via this link. And then basically I follow up with you. And we don't put a lot of burden in terms of record keeping. We don't need a lot of information from schools. We are relying on schools to be cognizant of that. So we do that. We have this chart, again, that's about trying to create some visual, taking complex things and making them visual. We have this guidance at a glance documents. So if we click on that, you'll see that we've taken this information and tried to make it very easy. So this is a lot of our guidance is taking complex and trying to make it simple and easy. And of course, being available for teachers in a rural district or metro district who have questions. You know, we've been developing outreach in the different languages. So here's the Seal of Biliteracy in French that I mentioned. You know, we have these in different languages here, and we're growing that. So we even have it in Russian and Korean and Japanese Chinese. So if you're native, we have a large number of speakers, a significant number of our population that do not speak English as their main language. So this is very important. This was also a great collaborative project with our consulates and with those communities. So this is how these were developed. I don't speak Chinese or Japanese or Russian or Bulgarian, but we partner with those community organizations that do to create guidance in the language for their students so that they understand that. And so that we're making it available for parents who may not speak English, may not be aware of the seal. And of course, then we have a network that tries to share that. So the seal's been super successful.
Great, thank you. Would you, Patrick, mind putting, somebody request the link to the list of schools in Georgia and the languages. Would you mind putting that link in the chat for that person? And the next question would be, these are all great documents provided by the state. Do state supervisors compare notes and share what they're doing at the state level? You're muted.
So yes, yes. The answer to your question is yes. Through Necessful, we do share that work. We have an annual conference, so we do that work that way. And I think it is true. What I would say, having taught about synergy, is that yes, it can always be improved. You know, the synergistic understanding. Part of that, of course, is state supervisors are super busy, so sometimes it's hard to find that time. But I think as we ask you to be together, you know, as state supervisors, we can be more together too and share. We share off each other's successes. I know in my work, I'm most closely affiliated through our Southern Atlantic Language Collaborative. It's kind of unique in the United States. It's its own collaborative. It's a written agreement signed by the superintendents of North Carolina, Virginia, South Carolina, and Georgia. So all of our superintendents have signed this form that enable us to work cross state lines in the area of world language. So I meet with my state supervisor friends in those states on a monthly basis. So I'm most comparative with them. And as I mentioned to you, if you go to necessful.org, you'll see that not every state has a state supervisor at the state level. So in the states that do, we do connect. We do have a listserv. I'm the vice president of Necessful. It's a vital organization to try to do that. But yes, it can also be improved perhaps as well. No system is perfect in a stagnated sense. It always has to adapt to try to be better. No system is perfect, but I do think there's more work to be done in that area, but I am excited about the work that was there. In my own life, professionally, it has been very beneficial to have a good, close working collaboration with the other state supervisors in the Southeast, which basically amounts to those languages. And I always look at my work as trying to encourage change and bring about greater change from where you are. So I can't control Tennessee and I can't control Alabama, but what I do is I try to show them by having a state supervisor of world languages on staff at their Department of Ed, what that brings to their state. So indirectly, I will freely admit that I try to use the position and the resources that I've been given to leverage states that do not have world language representation at the state level to consider doing that, because that is super important. And really, if I look at my crystal ball, it's going to be more important in the years to come. So they need to think about that.
For the next question, in the theme of taking care of each other, have you seen any creative things that have been done amongst other groups in terms of doing just that?
Have I seen other things among other groups in terms of connecting systems and creating greater synergy on the state or on the national level? I think I mean, if that's the way I understand the question. So if I'm answering that question, I would say, JNCL and ACL are very important in that process. I think there is effort underway in that area. I think the most successful teaching is carried through by passion. And I think what is true is that there are a number of passionate leaders and individuals and organizations working to raise awareness to the importance of multilingual, multicultural education and the role that it plays in preparing students to enter an increasingly globalized and interconnected world. So I do see institutions moving forward. I think, so here's another example of some freedoms that maybe other state supervisors don't have, but yet is a tool that we can use. So in Georgia, I run the Twitter account for Godot World Languages. That is me. That I run the Facebook page, and I post and I tweet directly. I don't have to go through a process to get it approved. That's the way our system operates. That's the trust that exists between my leadership and me. Right. And so just as a teacher, you are entrusted in your classroom with a certain level of freedom and hopefully to operate and to know what you're doing. So I think having a little bit of freedom and trusting your workers is critical because that gives them the freedom to really innovate. That's one thing. The best thing I would say about working in the Department of Ed and Superintendent Woods is, they have given me the freedom to operate within the space in a way that meets the needs of the stakeholders. And they haven't put a lot of restrictions on myself in doing. Now, that said, I understand that my position and having that freedom is contingent upon me being a responsible steward of that freedom. So that's true in the classroom as well. Your freedom as a teacher revolves around your ability to steward that freedom and use it effectively. So that's where we have to be good stewards of the tools that we have so that they're not misused. And misuse takes that takes away tools from us, and that's not what we want to do. So I think it's all states are different. We're all in this again together synergistically, creating opportunity. So what we're able to do in Georgia, maybe that creates more opportunity for other state supervisors in other states to become more flexible as well, because they see what we're able to do. And in turn, in Georgia, we learn from other states as well. So there's some great things that are going on out there. People are super creative, just like teachers. Teachers are amazing. Every teacher has some amazing things they're doing. We can't all be Superman 365 days of the year, but we can definitely try to be Superman every now and again. Or Superwoman. So I would say we just have to work within our spaces as much as we're able. But understand in our work that we are connected vertically to the rest of the communities and support one another. And for the state of Georgia, I would say that, we're very willing to work and support other states in their efforts. It's all, of course, we know our responsibility is here in Georgia, but we also know our responsibility doesn't end at the state line. So it's just like, do I care for the students that are not in my class? Yes, I do. I'm directly caring for those that are under my care, but if I see Johnny out in the hallway and he needs help, you can bet I'm going to help him. It's the same for a state, even though, you're not in my classroom per se, we should all as states have the ability. And that's kind of what you want to see at higher levels is the ability for states to work together to solve issues.
Okay, great. Going back to a little bit more of the seal of biliteracy, what does Georgia require for proof of English proficiency for American students?
Okay, so I'm sorry if I didn't finish that statement, but for the seal of biliteracy, it's a 3.0 GPA. So we just require that they have a 3.0 GPA. That burden is carried by the districts to make sure that they or if they're submitting names, that's been checked off. We don't require documentation to be submitted to the Department of Ed. We're not we don't want to put that burden on systems, number one, because that's just more paperwork. We have to, if you're a principal and I have a teacher in a classroom, I have to trust my teacher to have the ability to operate with freedom within that classroom. Yes, I want to know what they're doing. I can freely pop in, and I want to know what the curriculum is they're doing. But their day-to-day operations, I don't want to oversee that. And I think that, that's the kind of perfect sort of thing you want for the Seal of Biliteracy. We are here to support systems. So if System A says to me, we have a student has met the 3.0 GPA and they have qualified for a Seal of Biliteracy via one of the tests you provided, then they receive it. So we're not housing records. I'm not an archive. I don't have file folders that I keep on students that are sending me. I'm not that part. That's not the work of the state, in my opinion. What we want to do is to facilitate that. So what I do is, if the state or if a district or a school sends me names, then I'm saying that they have to sign off that they have required this and that this is done. They've given me that signature, then I send the seal out based on that. I'm not requiring proof of that. I think that's sort of unnecessary and just another level of paperwork that perhaps would slow down the process. So I think really it's always been about trying to streamline it. So we have a Google form that a teacher or a school system could make the request via, and I just mail those out based on their forms, and that goes out. And last year was different because of COVID. We did see a deep dip in our numbers. That was because of the interruption of testing in the spring. But even with that, we were able to award around 1,700 students across Georgia Seals of Biliteracy in many, many different languages. So that is really, really good. So our goal is to not create, so our basic default position is not to create unnecessary paperwork hurdles for teachers or students. We have to be able as a state to give them license to run certain aspects of what they're doing. It's a local control state, as many states are. So the state operates more as a support network and not as a system overseer, if you will, in many cases. Certainly that is a role, but we're much more focused on service and support. And I think that's borne out by our superintendent, and that's translated through the work of the Department of Ed.
In interest of time, we have one more question related to the Seal of Biliteracy and more specifically about your opinion. What do you think about the entrance gates for the Seal of Biliteracy being different from state to state? Do you feel that it diminishes the prestige of the award if in one state you can earn it at the intermediate low, but in another state you might need an intermediate high?
It's what I would say is that at some point we need some sort of national legislation on that. In the absence of that, this is what you have. So it is not perfect in the sense that I think it would be there. I think the aligning factor for all of us is the proficiency scale. So if you say intermediate low, okay, intermediate high in Georgia, some have gold, silver, and bronze, depending on their level. So the aligning factor right now is the proficiency scale itself. Whether or not national legislation gets passed that establishes a national seal of biliteracy that sort of encapsulates all of that, because of the void is there where there is no national policy on that, the states pass it, and as a result, states have different levels of thing. But but what I'm saying, yes, there is another step that needs to happen at some point. But what is great is that we have sort of a national alignment when it comes to proficiency, so we can at least align along that category. And we can say this we do it at intermediate high, they do it at intermediate low, at least we understand that it's all on the proficiency scale. So there's more work to be done there. I think we're at 40 states now that have approved seals of biliteracy. So I think that as that grows, we had over 100,000 students last year across the United States that earned seals of biliteracy. So that movement is still evolving. If you really stop and think about it, it's quite extraordinary how far we've come since 2011, which was when the first seal of biliteracy was established in California. So, you know, we see that progress taking place. To get standardization, it's really going to have to come from a level above the states. But the standardization that does exist now is the aligning of the proficiency. So proficiency aligns us. Oh, and someone asked in the, I'll just quickly respond to this. Can you share more about bronze, silver, and gold models? Georgia only has one level, that's intermediate high. So we only have one seal. But there are states where you can earn different levels of seals. It's sort of odd. There's a great, I want to say, YouTube PowerPoint presentation from a professor who escapes me at the moment from North Carolina, who's done research on the seals. But yeah, it takes some time if you want to and investigate that, but various states have different levels. I see a lot of questions, but I don't want to jump the gun. I'm just following the chat myself. Are there any software you use inside and outside like Rosetta? So that's constantly evolving. We are constantly, you know, since the pandemic hit especially, we've been trying to catalog that for teachers. And we have built some things for that within the state. But yeah, it's an evolving situation when it comes to technology. So there is software that is being used at the Department of Education at the state level. That's another thing that you quickly learn is that you don't promote one product over the other. Your goal is to try to create and connect products with those that need them. So you try to facilitate that, but you don't promote one over the other. So when it comes to products, we really can't say this product is better than that product at the state level. What we say is here are a number of products that others are using. So you can make your own choice.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Patrick. I think we'll go ahead and turn it back over to Miss Emily, please.
Thank you very much for another wonderful session, and to our moderators for doing a great job in